I guess, response in a sense, or does it require them to actually maintain, or are they obligated to respond to tenants within a certain time frame?
We have not stipulated a specific time frame, but we expect that they will be addressing resident concerns timely, and if residents do not feel satisfied, there's a number of venues that residents can come to us, and then we will step in and ask questions and make sure that the PACT partner is responding quickly.
So does NYCHA conduct audits to check the proper transition of documents to the new management?
Well, again, we have the files that we have when we try to send over a complete set of files. And when we become aware of potential issues, we try to rectify that as quickly as possible.
Okay. Does NYCHA require new management to audit their own records to check for proper transition documents?
I mean, we have checklists of all the documents that should be provided in any file. So whether it is a resident, noting that something might be missing, or the PAC partner noting that something missing, that's how we will triangulate and figure out how to identify what's missing, if anything, and then either find the document or recreate a document if necessary.
Well, when it comes to shelter allowance information, we've received concerns that NYCHA and HRA do not automatically update the shelter allowance information when a property transitioned from public housing to PAC. This administrative fix could prevent a PAC developer from filing eviction for non-payment. Can we get a commitment or timeline from NYCHA on when this issue will be fixed?
So, Council Member, I'm happy to say that it has already been fixed. We do work with HRA pre-conversion to make sure that they know that they have clients who live in the development that is about to be converted. So this way, shelter allowance payments are transferred to the new development team. Early on, this was an issue in our early conversions. It was something that we learned. It was something that, yes, unfortunately, wasn't thought of before, and payments were going to NYCHA, but that was corrected, and so now. On day one, payments should be going, straight to the new development team.
When it comes to tenant outreach, pre and during the post-conversion, the RAD lease was drafted with input and assistance from tenants and housing advocates. Has there been any changes to the lease or any regulatory documents since their creation?
Yes, the lease has been updated periodically. In fact, right now it is going through a review and an update.
Okay. And how often does NYCHA solicit recommendations from residents and leaders and housing advocates on what can be improved or modified on these lease agreements?
Anytime.
Has anything been recently recommended or modified?
Most of what we do is on points of clarification. The original lease was developed, as you mentioned, with housing advocates, legal aid, and residents. And so I think the base document largely addresses the issues. So a lot of what we do is largely for clarification.
And who is presently responsible for outreach to tenants before and during and after RAD-PAC conversion?
So Leroy Williams, who is my colleague to my right, runs a team that does some of the outreach, and we also within real estate partner with them to do some outreach. But I'll let Leroy start, and we can fill in some gaps if necessary.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Council Member. How are you?
Hey.
So we have a dedicated team that works with residents overall and engagement. Specifically, we do, as some of the residents already talked about, door-to-door sharing of information. We work with our partners and real estate and the development partners in making sure that we're planning those monthly meetings accordingly, making sure the proper languages are distributed to residents often. We have a PACT hotline that you either can call or email to make sure that if you have questions, we can make sure within a 48-hour notice, return your phone call and answer any questions that a resident may have. We send out robocall and email reminders for all meetings that we have to make sure people are reminded, besides just putting up notices door by door. We make sure that the resident association is a part of everything that we do, all of the planning for meetings and any type of engagement, because of course we do want to make sure that we have foundational engagement, but every development is different. So we want to make sure that we set a plan that sets the engagement for that specific development. In the last few years, we've learned that residents want to see someone and make sure that ongoingly that they know that a particular person would like to be at the development. So we instituted a PACT office hours for all PACT developments where staff of mine are at a specific site. It could be at a management office or a TA office, and they know that that staff person will be there every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 5, and to make sure that they can come down and talk to an actual staff person to answer questions.
How do you determine that the outreach efforts you conducted are sufficient?
So again, we sit down with the resident association and any resident that would like to take part in it to make sure that besides the monthly meetings, besides just the ongoing distribution of information, we try to form an engagement plan that fits the needs of that residents. Again, there's larger developments and there's very small developments, so we want to make sure that it fits the needs of the residents.
All right. What recourse exists for tenants who find that the PACT developers are not maintaining sufficient levels of outreach or communication during the process?
So I'll just talk about what my staff do, and then John, I'm sure, can jump in. But I have a post-conversion unit that works with the resident associations, the management companies, and the social services offices, where we go and inspect and meet with them quarterly to make sure that we're hearing in real time, issues and concerns. We make sure to partner with our asset management team at real estate to transfer that information to them to make sure that we're addressing all of the issues and concerns and getting back to the resident on a timely basis. The residents are, besides just the quarterly meetings, they can also call us at any time and we can set up special meetings as needed.
Thank you. Now we're going to move forward to, we have been joined by Councilman Salamanca. We're going to now move forward with a round of questions from my committee members, and we're going to begin with Councilmember Willis.
Thank you, Chair. Good to see you all. I guess I'd like to, so many questions. So many questions. Let me start very quickly because I know I'm on a clock this time, so I don't have the liberty of yapping. But in the response to the survey that you mentioned in your presentation, you mentioned 4 developments participated in the survey. Can you tell me how many respondents that included?
It was about 1,000.
1,000 responded out of how many tenants in those 4 developments?
Do we have the, sorry? 21%.
It was a 20% response
21.
rate for each development? Overall. So some could be 5%, some could be 7%, some could be 30%. I would love for you to provide to the council
Sure.
a breakdown of what that actually looks like.
Sure.
Anyway, back to my questions. Can you tell me how much the city has invested into the PACT program since the program's start?
We can get you the total amount of city subsidy that has gone into a couple of the deals. The majority of the deals have not received city subsidy, but Edenwald and Reed Park Rock are the first 2 to receive city subsidy, and we expect as we go forward there will be additional projects that will require some city capital.
there is a huge investment of staff and NYCHA time, I'm sure, in putting together these deals and units and potential oversight, creating the dashboard. So I would imagine it's significantly higher than just direct subsidy. Is that correct?
Certainly, yes, there's NYCHA staff time.
Could you provide some estimation of what that actual direct investment in developing, maintaining, and expanding this program is looking like?
I would have to look into that. I don't know what that would be.
Thank you. We look forward to receiving the information. You mentioned the number of conversions over the next 2 years. I guess that would complete the full amount that is in the pipeline. And the end amount, of course, I'm not doing the math, but do you expect to continue to aggressively fill PACT sites over the next 5 years?
Well, the commitment was to convert 62,000 over 10 years, starting in December of 2018. So it is our intention to get to that 62,000 by the deadline of 2028.
Okay, and in terms of how is NYCHA monitoring response time to tenant requests at the PACT development currently, and how would you respond to a resident who said that in her development that's been converted, you're only allowed to submit one request at a time, and that management told her she could not submit another request?
So we track work orders and resolution on work orders on a monthly basis, and overall the performance is very strong, well over 90% on time. However, as we've heard, sometimes that doesn't seem to be the case. So I would invite the residents to obviously work with their property managers, but also if they're not getting satisfactory answers, they can reach out to us through the PACT hotline, through CCC, through 311, but primarily through us, and we will look into the issue.
How many resident complaints are you getting through the PACT hotline?
I don't have an exact number. It's not a huge number, though, I can tell you that.
Okay. In terms of how is NYCHA, oh, sorry, Chair, if I may, I'm almost done.
You may you have another minute if you want.
Okay, thank you. How is NYCHA able to understand the tenant repair needs that are being met in the NYCHA developments? Tell me, what is that actual monitoring look like, and verifying that quality repair is in fact being done and tenants are in fact satisfied with the service that they are being provided?
Well, again, we go out, we have our design and construction team that is going out, making sure that the construction is progressing as expected and consistent with the scope that we agree to with our PACT partners. And that happens throughout the construction process. Post-construction, there's also going to be annual HQS inspections to make sure that the apartments were, repaired correctly and are continuing to be maintained appropriately. We've also, as mentioned in my testimony, we've developed this survey that we are administering on a rolling basis. So as developments are completed in terms of their construction, there will be surveys, and we will gauge resident satisfaction with both the construction and the property management.
And obviously, I feel like I remember talking to you about it when it was developed, so I'm glad to see that it has been implemented. I guess, could you provide the council with an accounting of how many inspections have been done to date? Is there a metric by which, Oversight feels robust enough for you to feel like these numbers that are on the benchmark are in fact verifiable?
We could put that information together for you.
Do you have benchmarks for the quality? I think they're called quality assistance or quality monitoring team.
You mean the HQS?
Yes.
Did you want to speak to it?
Hi. As it relates to its housing quality standards, it is an inspection required by HUD no less than annually. We are required to do 100% basically annually. We have set, with HUD discretion, permission, if the inspection passes, we do it biannually. Residents can also, if they feel the need, they can contact us and request a special inspection if they feel like in between their regular HUD required inspection that something is in disrepair, they can contact us and we'll come back out.
Councilmember, may I add, and Lakeisha could probably even add to what I'm going to say too, is that the federal government recently put in even more stringent standards in place in terms of not inspecting the units, but also inspecting the common areas and safety and inspection standards. So, so that is not only true for the PACT properties, but also true for public housing.
Yeah, and I'm glad for that, certainly. But biannual, I think what we see in the pre-panel is there are still some real gaps here. And these are the same complaints we've heard over the years, that there continues to be this disconnection between residents are experiencing shoddy repairs, real challenges with the private management firms, and not a lot of remedy to that effect, and we're continuing full steam ahead with the program. Can we, and obviously we have to acknowledge where flowers are due that some of these developments, you know, have been successful, and there is real resident satisfaction. Nevertheless, in terms of the legislation that is being proposed today, you referenced the benchmarks that is on the website, and I was looking at them, and I think they're moderately helpful for someone like me, but certainly even when I was looking for Penn Wortman houses in these benchmarks, they're classified by bundle. That's relatively useless if you don't know what the bundles actually are. So I would say a resident, that would not be helpful for them. It wasn't helpful for me. So you may want to reconsider, and none of this data is disaggregated, and certainly I think the legislation put forward relatively minimal standards of impact, and I think we're going to hear that we need to increase those, we need to make the measures more robust that we would like to hear from NYCHA and the mayor's office around. This does not meet the intention of the legislation. I think there's still some space in between. I would like to know very clearly if the administration is interested in working together to get a robust impact statement on PACT.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
No, so Councilmember, I think we've heard you, and this is something that you've called for a long time. I think the dashboard is very new, but we would be happy to work with you and the council, and the chairman and council staff on making it even more robust, and and making sure that it is as user friendly and also has the data that is the most useful. But this is just the start. The one thing about this program, it has evolved over the years, and it has taken a lot of input. And to us, transparency, and the more data that's out there can only help the program.
Thank you, and I would just like to say in closing, I think residents need to be given an option to choose the future of their developments, and to be given full, accurate information. And written information is one thing. Accessible information is another, which often requires conversations and detangling and using language that is accessible. And much of these documents are incomprehensible. So I would say we need to do better, because we're still having the same conversation around these, highly technical documents that are not helpful to residents who are given the tasks of reviewing them and coming to some sort of conclusion in very short time frames. It is an unfair engagement. But also the same for what is on the website. Thank you for starting that. Nevertheless, if the data that is here is incomprehensible and not usable, because the benchmark says right now that PACT, pretty much there are no outstanding work orders, and yet we see here that that is not in fact the case, there is something wrong. So please continue to do the work of making things truly accessible to the residents and having them truly engage in a process of dignity and autonomy where they decide with full information, not after the fact,
Right.
like demolition, full information before they make choices. With that, I thank you and I yield, and thank you so much for the courtesy, Chair.
Thank you, Council Member. Now we're going to move, we're going to allow Council Member Sanchez to have into the round of questions.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, friends. It's good to see you all. I have a lot of questions, so if we could, I have a lot of questions. Okay, I have a lot of questions, so if we could just try to be very direct. So first of all, just by way of framing, and we heard from tenants on the pre-panel. Thank you so much for testifying. It's a very big impact. 35% of the public housing portfolio in the city of New York transferring over to private management through the PACT program, 62,000 units. That's really big. So I just want to I'm going to just ask this question. Is there a goal for the trust? How many units are going to be converted via the trust?
Thank you, Council Member. The legislation gives us the ability to transfer 25,000 units.
25. Okay, thank you so much. Second, picking up where Councilmember Aviles left off and directly in relation to so many of the concerns we heard this morning from our tenant panel. I was listening online. Thanks, technology. What oversight or inspections is there on PACT conversion construction sites? Is DOB inspecting these sites? Does NYCHA have a dedicated team?
So certainly, all regulatory agencies can inspect at any time, but as it relates to our direct involvement, there's the design and construction team within real estate that conducts inspections. Some of that is staff-based. We also have a couple of firms that help augment that work for us and go out and do inspections so that we can ensure that the work is progressing as expected.
And so if NYCHA tenants observe what they deem to be unsafe work practices like asbestos remediation work being incorrectly covered or unsafe lead practices, et cetera, who do they call? Do they call 311?
They can certainly reach out to us and we will respond quickly. We have always responded to every complaint that we've gotten basically immediately.
Great, thank you.
And yes, they can
also call 311. You can also call 311 and let your local council members know.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, third, with respect to the PACT hotline you mentioned, you said Legal Aid Society is receiving funding to do this work. How much funding is Legal Aid Society receiving? What is the source of these funds? And are they receiving enough funds to represent tenants in court, or is this simply the operation of the hotline? And if so, what sources or resources do tenants have for representation in court?
We can get you this data as a follow-up, but generally the funding comes out of each transaction to ensure that there's sufficient funding.
Okay, thank you. I'll look forward to that. Chair, if I may?
You may.
A couple more. I'm going to talk fast. I have been told I'm good at that. Right sizing, sizing up, sizing down. How many families in the completed PACT conversions have been right-sized up? How many have been right-sized down? And have there been eviction proceedings eviction proceedings or completions due to refusals to right-size?
Thank you for your question. We can get you the exact number on how many are required to right size up and down following this session.
So you do not have that number today. Okay. No. Thank you. How many over-income families remain in PACT converted buildings? By how much have their rents increased? And how are rents determined for these over-income families? I think, Gavai, you know where I'm coming from.
The same, I'm sorry, but the same answer. We will get you that information following this session.
Okay, and for context, the Center for Court Innovation has raised concerns about rent increases at PACT sites. RAD regulations require PACT managers to charge flat rents based on Section 8 flat rent, the Section 8 flat rent schedule instead of the NYCHA flat rent schedule. And there is concern that this change can push higher and moderate income families out of PACT buildings, helping to concentrate poverty and depleting shared resources among neighbors. So really look forward to that information. Okay, thank you. Regarding transfers, Actually, I'm going to skip this one due to time. Regarding transparency, so in the process of conversion, various documents are produced by NYCHA to ensure the protection of the NYCHA property, tenant rights. Which of these are shared, which are not, and why not? And specifically, I'm referring to the control agreement, regulatory agreement, declaration of restrictive covenant and use agreements, ground lease and management agreement. Yep, leave it at that. Which are shared, which are not, and why not?
We have template documents on our website, so basically any of the documents that govern our transactions are available for folks to see. But the one document that obviously residents are most attached to, of course, is their personal lease.
And so actual documents are not shared. Is that what you're saying? You can see templates, but you can't see the actual documents exchanged between the PACT partner and NYCHA?
We have not released deal-specific documents at this time.
Why is that?
Largely because we want to be able to negotiate with each of our PACT partners and make sure we're getting the best deal for the city and for NYCHA.
Okay. Thank you. I have a lot more questions about that, but I'll leave it at that. I guess my last two questions, one is regarding PACT partners that go bad, right? Relationships that sour. How many times has NYCHA changed PACT partners, and what has that process been? And the last set of questions if the chair would allow me, I'm sorry, Chair, thank you.
Yeah,
Chair.
go right ahead.
Thank you, is regarding NYCHA employment, but bad PACT partners.
We have not yet initiated the removal of a PACT partner. We recently had an instance at Hope Gardens where the property manager was replaced. And that was a business decision that the development team at Penrose made as it relates to Pinnacle City Living.
Got it. Okay, so it wasn't the entire team.
No,
it was just the
one
property manager.
Party to the joint venture.
Understood. And if there were something broader than that, are there clawback provisions
Yes.
that NYCHA has, and what do those look like? What do those processes look like?
I mean, it's very clearly stipulated in a number of our documents that if we are unsatisfied, we could initiate a process to remove our partners.
Okay. In documents that are not shared by the public, with the public? Okay. Okay, last question. I'm a champion for sharing what we can with the public so that there is more transparency, and sunlight is the best disinfectant. Last question, and this is sort of looking back to the original mission at the founding of NYCHA, right? Stabilizing families in their homes, but also providing good paying union jobs for the building trades. I know we can't say that in those terms nowadays, but it was concerning your answer to the chair's question that no NYCHA union employees have stayed within their work sites. They have all transferred to other developments. So question one is, has there been attrition of these union employees that were on NYCHA sites? Have they all transferred to other sites? And second, are there either local hire or union requirements for PACT converted sites? And that is the conclusion of my questions.
Okay.
Councilmember, so just to clarify, I think so all of the employees at a site are offered the opportunity to stay on site. However, most of them choose not to because they're city employees. They have municipal pensions, they have a lot of benefits, and they have a lot of time. And so the option to stay with their union, which is the Teamsters, which is a municipal union, most of them choose into that because they'd be giving up a lot of benefits there. We have at Betances houses of the super retired from NYCHA and then stayed on with the property there, lent their expertise. But in that situation, the employees who work at the PACT sites are union employees. They are, usually with private sector unions, like for instance, some are 32BJ, some are other different unions. But these are all union jobs. There are also Section 3 requirements, at PACT sites, just like there are Section 3 requirements, at NYCHA, and I would say in many cases, the local hiring, they've been able to beat the numbers, at the PACT sites than we have, in the NYCHA traditional portfolio.
So Section 3 requirements transfer directly over to PACT sites
That's correct.
as existing? Okay. Thank you so much for the permission, Chair, and thank you, NYCHA. Good to see you all.
Thank you, council member. Now we're going to move to council member Mealy.
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow back on her question, Section 8 requirements, how many people from all the NYCHA developments have Section 3 jobs?
So all the NYCHA or the PACT developments?
NYCHA.
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry, because we prepared for the PACT, but Councilmember, I can get you that.
But it's about the jobs. It seemed like all of a sudden now, Section 3, no one is getting those jobs, and it's supposed to be an employee or constituents who live in NYCHA get these jobs.
Right, we
It's
can't-
like it's no documentation, or it seemed like it just stopped. So I go back on that. You don't have to answer that question. Could I get a yes or no answer in regards to if development do not want to do RAD and PACT? Yes or no, y'all would do it anyway, or no, you won't? Is that a question?
No, we would not do it.
You would not do it? You sure? So
There have been instances where, in the process that I described, where we spoke with resident leadership, we spoke with the resident body, and there was no interest. And so as Brian said earlier, we have a lot of other interest across the city, and so
Yes.
we will do those projects.
But could I ask you, so if it's only a certain group that is for it, and the majority of the tenants do not want it, so you go by the section of tenants who want it?
No, we work again
Or
with
whoever
resident.
you
we
have
work with resident
communication with?
No, we work with resident leadership, and we have a
If
open
the,
discussion with
the
the
tenant
resident
leadership
body.
is going rogue on their own, and they want RAD and PACT, because maybe you promised them something, and the majority of the tenants don't want it, let me know.
Order.
Again, this is why we have meetings with the full resident body to gauge their interests. We don't rely just on the tenant association presidents.
So now, any development who do not want to get in RAD and PACT, you would not make them?
If we felt like there was a significant number of people who were not interested, we would not, and we've made
So I
those
have a
decisions
few
in the
that's
past.
been calling me, so I will make sure we're going to stay on that route, that they do not want it. Okay, I just want to ask you another question. You said, how many times has NYCHA changed a PACT partner? You said you never did.
We have not initiated a change.
So, given the difficulties that Pinnacle City Planning had, is NYCHA confident enough that their abilities to continue to use them as a partner, as in West Brighton 1 and 2?
Yes.
You still feel they're on the job, but you just got rid of a manager?
Well, we didn't, as I mentioned, that was a decision that Penrose, the developer at Hope Gardens, made about Pinnacle City Living. Pinnacle has worked extensively with BFC, who is the developer for West Brighton. They have a long-standing relationship. Pinnacle manages many of BFC's or a number of BFC's buildings, and so it appears that there is a good working relationship there, and we're confident we can move forward.
If the tenants would like them to cut ties with them, is it feasible?
It would be feasible. My understanding, though,
You're here for the tenants, right?
Yes.
So if they come together and say they do not want that developer management, they can cut ties with them.
we would
Yes
certainly
or-
be willing to hear from the residents. But I would say, as it relates to West Brighton, my understanding is that Pinnacle has a very good relationship with the residents
Okay,
of West
we
Brighton.
could go back on that. Okay, just post-convergent oversight. What information is captured in the monthly reports by PACT developers that details high-risk repairs, such as mold, lead, elevators, heat, and hot water complaints?
It's the work orders. So whatever work orders have been submitted, we track the number of work orders and then the time to resolution for those work orders. And that's now on our dashboard on our website.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back a little further. How was the implementation of picking these developers or these private management companies? Like Pinnacle and what's the next one, Fairfield? Or
Fairstead?
Fairstead. How did you choose Fairstead to get 18 developments in which they never did this before? Could you explain that?
So the process has evolved since we started PACT. In the beginning, NYCHA used to put out RFPs, and we would jointly select.
So they won 16
Well,
RFPs.
I'm just describing.
I don't have that much time.
Okay.
Yes or no? Or just give me a brief synopsis.
So what we
How
do.
did 16 developments go to one private management?
So what we do today is we.
Because you didn't have a portfolio, because they never did this before.
Yes.
So how did you choose them?
Well, we pre-qualified developers, property managers, general contractors, and then we put out requests for expressions of interest, and we also put together resident review committees. And so, since you're referring to Fairstead, I assume you're talking about Reed Park Rock. And so in that case, the residents co-selected the joint venture team that we picked for
I'm
this
just
team.
speaking about in general, not Park Rock. I got other questions. I go a second round for Park Rock. But how did you as an agency chose just one private company to do all these developments? They never had any experience on doing this. And I have an issue with how many of them are doing the development or reconstruction of buildings and having the constituents stay in the building while they do the repairs. How many buildings do you have it like that?
Well, so with the team that you're asking about,
I'm not asking about the team. I'm just in regards to any private management company that is doing the redevelopment of any NYCHA developments. How many of them are having the constituents live there while they remodel?
they all
Do all
have.
these beautiful new kitchens, and they have to be in there with all that dust.
Yeah.
How many? That's all I want to know.
I mean, they all have experience doing tenant-in-place rehab, even if they haven't done NYCHA.
Tenant place rehab is what? You moving them out of the building?
No, they're in the
So,
apartment.
Don't you think it's best to do checkerboard, if so? Because I've done numerous of them. Instead of having constituents inside the building with all this mass, they have asthma, different health issues. They're going to be in a building, an apartment that you are remodeling with all this dust. So could you give me how many that you moved into a hotel? Could you give me that?
We would have to provide that information.
So it is some that need to go into a hotel
Yes.
because the reconstruction is really dusty and
Yes, and
So-
they're, yes.
Councilmember, sometimes it's hotels, sometimes it is an available unit inside the development. And if residents do come to us and they say,
so they have to come to you as a city agency, not thinking about the health of the constituents.
no, we have.
You don't think, would you want to live in somewhere
so-
that's being remodeled?
So Councilmember, residents.
I tried it myself,
No,
it
I
didn't work.
I hear you. Yeah, residents volunteer their health relation. We cannot demand that they give it to us. So
Is it a budget for you to move
no, it's
them?
not. It's not a budget issue. You know.
No, I'm asking.
Yeah, it's not a
The
budget issue
management
whatsoever.
company do not have a budget that if it's egregious, you will move the tenant into a hotel, or if it's not enough vacant apartments, you would move them out.
It's not a budget issue whatsoever. So
So you do have a budget for that?
We do have a budget for that, correct?
Can you tell me how much? Because I believe, I know a
Yeah,
lot of the
with it-
constituents want to move out while you're doing the development.
That honestly, in our experience, that has not been the case. A lot of people, tell us they want to stay in the development, they want to stay in their apartments. The reason being, a lot of people have, if they have children, they don't want to. They won't want to make sure that they move too far away
So
from
you can move them
development.
to
if they have
a nice hotel close.
We could, yeah, we definitely could, and especially when people have, health issues. We want to make sure that the work is done safe.
Go ahead,
Just one more
Councilmember.
question.
Okay, yep.
With RAD impact conversions, why are the apartments being smaller? The elevators are being smaller. Could you explain that?
I don't know. I'm not aware of apartments becoming smaller.
I'm gonna give you a list.
Okay.
It's sad. You're supposed to be enhancing, not taking away. And that's what's going on right now with the RAD impact conversion. So I wait for the next round. Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councilmember. We will have another round. Councilmember Salamanca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. I want to start off by I have the third largest NYCHA portfolio in the city of New York. I think Councilmember Darlene Mealy and Ayala have the two biggest before mine. I know that in my district I'm going through a PACT on the Stebbins Hewitt. And look, I just want to say that it's not a one-size-fits-all. The PACT may not be appropriate for other buildings in my district, but the PACT that is currently occurring on Stebbins and Hewitt, my constituents are extremely happy with the work that's being done. I can tell you that. For years, they went out with, the winter, no heat, no hot water, leaks in their roof whenever it rained. It rained inside of their apartments. Their windows not insulated appropriately, air coming in and out. This was the first winter where they thanked me for getting this work done, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. But as I said, that doesn't mean that the PAC will be appropriate for Melrose houses or Jackson houses, right? So I just want to put that out there. Going back to what the Councilmember Darlene Mealy said, some of the frustrations while going through these renovations are they came in at times unannounced, had to move their furniture around, kind of inconvenienced them. The dust, that did affect them. So there are, I can say, certain situations, or maybe what I think that NYCHA should do is look at what occurred so that we can fix these issues as you move forward in other PACs. So with that, I'm going to leave it at that. I want to talk about sidewalks. A homeowner, when you have a sidewalk and your sidewalk is cracked, the Department of Transportation gives you time to fix it. If they don't fix it, if you don't fix it, you get a violation, and the Department of Transportation comes, fixes it for you, and they send you a bill. Your sidewalk, if you don't clean it, the Department of Sanitation comes in and gives you a violation. And they'll come back again. If it's not clean, they double your violation or your summons. I made a call the other day because forest houses, their sidewalks are completely damaged. And the president of forest houses, he's disabled and he uses a wheelchair to get around. I made a call and I asked, hey, we need to fix the sidewalk, and I sent pictures. There were holes on the sidewalk. How soon can we get the sidewalk fixed? And I was told that NYCHA is not responsible for the sidewalk, that is the Department of Transportation. I want to know, why is it that a homeowner is responsible to fix their sidewalk? If they don't fix it, you get a violation by the Department of Transportation, but NYCHA is not responsible to fix their sidewalk. I need an answer to that, because it just does not make sense.
Councilmember, thank you for the question. So NYCHA is responsible for the roadways and within the campus, and this predates me. This goes back decades, and the sidewalks itself is the Department of Transportation. I cannot tell you why. We'd probably have to do some research, but I've been with NYCHA now for 18 years. It's been as long as.
Brian, you and I have a great relationship. I talk to you often, but it just does not make any sense. Why is a property owner, a building, or a homeowner responsible for their sidewalk, and NYCHA is not responsible for their sidewalk? It's called common sense. That does not make sense. All right. So, can we get the sidewalk fixed at forest houses?
I'll call you later, and then we can look into that. Yeah, I could. I can't make a commitment here, but we could look into it. I'll call you.
All right.
Okay. Thank
All right, Mr. Chair. I think maybe we should have a hearing on sidewalks.
We'll have a hearing
to see
on
how we can fix our
sidewalks.
sidewalks at NYCHA.
Hopefully we'll
All right,
get a
thank
better answer than a sidebar. All right, we're gonna go back to changing during conversions, and we want to get to right sizing. What is the process for NYCHA using right sizing during the PACT conversion?
For right sizing, we honor the public housing standards because there is a slight difference between public housing and Section 8.
Right.
So anyone who was in place at the time of the conversion, we honor the public housing occupancy standards, and we only require right sizing for those who do not meet that standard.
Okay, and what happens to families who are under occupied units when there are no other units available in the dead development?
They are notified of the need to right size, and they are put on a list so that the next time that a unit is available that meets the size that they need, they are notified that they need to transfer.
So there's no displacement?
No.
Okay. And are there reasonable accommodations given to elderly folks? Because I know we have a lot of seniors who are living in 3 or 2 bedroom apartments. Are reasonable accommodations being given by the developers or the new management company that's
To remain in their current unit?
to remain in a current unit in a 3 bedroom apartment? Are reasonable accommodations being given?
We are allowed to give reasonable accommodations, but not to, like, it can't be more than 2 bedrooms greater than what they need. So the most that we can really do is offer 1 additional bedroom based on the accommodation. But we are not allowed to go larger than that.
Okay, so
But I think
would it be?
just saying that you're a senior would not be grounds for a reasonable accommodation. I think you would have to show a true health reason in order to remain in your apartment. The thing is, yes, we understand that a lot of residents, see their apartment as a home because they've been in there for many decades. Their history is there, and we're totally sympathetic of that. But at the same time, we also have many families who are living in apartments where there's 5 or 6 of them in 1 bedrooms who really need the bigger space. So it is, we have to make sure that we get the proper size families into the proper size apartments.
So, but reasonable accommodations are given.
Reasonable accommodation is the thing, but it has to be, something from a medical professional that shows a true medical need.
Okay, and if there's a situation where, say for instance, it's not a senior, a particular situation where a person who was married and the wife walked away, took the children, the father has remained in the apartment. What is done in a situation like that? Are they dragged into court?
No, first, when it's time for the household change to be reviewed, that person who remains will be notified that they need to right size. There is no court action at that point.
So you would basically negotiate with them, or?
It's not a negotiation, it's really just an implementation of the HUD regulations concerning household sizes.
So they wouldn't be dragged into court?
Not immediately, no.
But they will be dragged into court if they decide not to leave the unit.
Then it can become a court issue if they refuse to leave the unit.
Okay, so they could possibly become homeless if there's no place for them to go.
I would say hopefully everyone will comply, but if someone refuses to abide by the regulations that they've signed on to, then...
Well, I mean, but this is a situation where you have a person who is not part of the composition, but has been living in an apartment for the last 20 years. Whatever the situation is with the wife left, took the children. Now this particular individual's in the apartment. What is done to make sure that person doesn't become homeless and maintains the place where they're living at, and they've been also continue to pay the rent?
So I just want to clarify that the answers given before was based on someone legally being part of the household.
Right.
In your last part of your statement, you're saying the person was there but not
part of the composition.
So we do have a program where we will review
right.
these circumstances, and we do it on a case-by-case basis to try to preserve that tenancy.
So they would, okay. So in a situation like that, would there be a negotiation with the tenant? Would there be any conversations that will make sure that that tenant doesn't become homeless?
It's a case-by-case basis, and our intent is always to preserve the tenancy. So if we are able to, we will.
So when it comes to oversight and NYCHA's role, when it comes to a controversy like that, who's the lead person, or who is there? Who steps in a situation like that?
The
to help
lease housing department
Right.
will review. We will work with the family. We will work with on-site management to gather as much information as possible to come to a final determination on that tenancy.
Okay, what information about under-occupied units is given to the PACT developer during the conversion?
During the conversion process, everything is given regarding legal logs, like court actions, who the occupants are, the known occupants are. Anything else? The rent roll, sorry, thank you.
And what happens to families who are in an under-occupied unit when there are no other units available in development?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
What happens to families who are in under-occupied units when there are no other units available in the development?
They would go onto a list and considered according to that list whenever vacancies occur.
So they would have to go on a list?
Yes, because in the entire development, we're looking at everyone who is either under or over occupied. So as units become available, then management is notified, here's the next people on the list who need to right size.
Okay. And when it comes to right sizing, we know that there are some developments where there are only X amount of one bedrooms. And I think I just want to get this on the record again. It is the policy of NYCHA that until an appropriate apartment becomes available, then the person will be moved. Or the individual. Okay, just want to make it. When it comes to ticket tracking and repairs, working during the PACT process, what is the current system in place for ticketing, tracking repair work and service tickets during the PACT process?
Do you mean post-construction or post-conversion when the PACT partner is taken over?
Yes.
So the different PACT partners, they use their own property tracking software, and we require them to provide us with a summary of their data. So we take in all the data and put it into a form that then ends up on our website. But they all have their own systems that they use.
Is it at their discretion on when they implement a ticketing system or tracking system?
I mean, a lot of them have established systems that they've been using separate from NYCHA, so it is simpler for them to just continue to use the different ticketing systems that they use in their other portfolios to bring over to the NYCHA system.
Well, I know there's been instances where some management companies have not instituted a ticketing system, and well, let me say this, they've taken 2 years or so to introduce a ticketed system, and it's been very chaotic. And even after they've introduced the ticketed system, there's still, repairs are still not being met, and there's still major issues that are not being addressed by the new management.
Okay, I would be interested to follow up with specifics on that with you.
Also, tenants have described that once a development begins the PACT process, repairs at the development tend to slow down or stop altogether and are left for when the conversion process commences. What work is still being done by NYCHA, and what work is left to be undone by the PACT partner?
So NYCHA remains responsible for all of the properties and all of the repairs right up until the date of conversion. It is our expectation that work would not slow down. And so to the extent that we are made aware of any issues, we will sort through that and make sure that work happens.
What happens to ongoing work already underway?
It would have to be completed.
So does NYCHA complete it, or does the new management, or is there because we're talking about transitioning, is there a smooth transition? Because I've seen situations and heard of situations where basically NYCHA just, disappeared. And that has happened in a couple of developments that are in my district, where even the developers said that they just gave us the key and disappeared.
Well, again, that is not what is supposed to happen. And I'm not sure if you're asking about, work orders that residents have been filing in their specific apartments or other types of projects, but certainly...
Well, it's a combination of the two, work orders and also projects that are being undertaken by NYCHA at the time of the conversion.
So work orders, they should be addressed in real time as they're being filed by residents right up until the closing, and NYCHA should complete those. As it relates to larger potential capital projects, one of the things that we try to do is make sure that if we think a project can be done by NYCHA before the conversion happens and it makes sense for the longevity of the project, then that project would go forward. If we think it makes more sense for the PACT partner to take over a piece of work, like say replacing boilers or what have you, we would then ask the PACT partner to do that work if it makes more sense for them to do it than us.
Okay. Let me move on to employment at PACT developments, which is, to me, very important. At Linden and Boulevard houses, which are in my particular district, two developments that recently transitioned from public housing to PACT, not most recently, but a couple of years back. How many NYCHA employees did these developments have before the conversion?
We could get you that information. We can give you a before and after.
And how many PACT employees are now at these sites?
Again, we could get you the before and after.
Okay, I just want to get these questions out. Do PACT employees have similar job benefits to public housing employees? And if not, what are the key differences?
I think there's a lot of similarities. As Brian mentioned, these are unionized jobs, so I think there's certainly some similarities. I would not know all of the differences between the roles or in terms of the benefits, but I think they're fairly comparable. Brian, did you want to?
Again, I think it's different unions, different companies, so it's not exactly the same, but I think it is certainly very...
Well, basically a housing assistant would be the same as a housing assistant under the new management, right? What would be the difference? That's a simple question.
I think we can get you also, I think we can get you the starting, at each, starting salary at each, but NYCHA employees tend to, stay for quite some time. A housing assistant could make, the salary would be quite different, but we could look for starting in both sites.
Well, I guess this question hits on what Councilmember Sanchez had brought up. Does NYCHA track the union membership or local hiring of the PACT developers against what they propose or promise to the developers selection process?
We do. We do track the local hiring. We do track the Section 3 hiring. And also, too, can I just clarify something I had said earlier, too? I just want to make sure, too, the Section 3 rules apply, to the construction under, PACT sites, just as they do in NYCHA, but not, moving not on all hiring.
Do they apply, so they don't apply to the management?
Post-conversion, correct. Yes, post-conversion. But that is not to say that, many of the partners haven't found local hiring to be beneficial, and even though it's not a requirement, it's not something that they don't do.
What is NYCHA doing as far as oversight, say particularly in a development where there has been no local hiring or the developer chooses not to do the local hiring? I mean, how do you bring them into compliance?
I mean, there's not an option to not participate. They have to make every effort to
Well, I can give you a list of developments where there has been no local hiring at all, and it has been an abysmal approach taken by the management company to say that they've put out a couple of flyers, but no true real engagement, even with the tenant association, to have local hiring. And keep in mind, in my district, we've had close to a little over $1 billion that has passed through 4 developments, through the rehab or the construction piece, and there was no local hiring done within the last 4 years, or subcontracting. So we've asked the developer, to provide us with information or numbers. To this day, nothing. So maybe you can finally do some oversight over
Yes.
that and see if you can get those numbers for us.
Okay.
Because we need to know. Unemployment is high in my district, especially in NYCHA, and there's no reason why residents shouldn't have been working or have had some type of business opportunities with all this money that has passed through these particular developments, and possibly throughout the city.
Absolutely.
Regarding, and also too, can we get a breakdown of the unions that are being used or that are being used by these particular development companies?
Yes, we can.
And also the numbers on union positions that are on these particular sites. Okay. Now I'll move on to post-conversion oversight. What information is captured in monthly reports by PACT developers that details high-risk repairs such as mold, lead, elevator heat, and hot water complaints?
So it's the same as the period during construction. So all of the work orders that are filed, we get that monthly reporting, so we know how many work orders have been created, and we track both the number, the quantity, but also the time to resolution.
So how does NYCHA verify that these reports are accurate? What system is in place?
We also make sure that our residents are satisfied, right? Like if we rely in part on residents confirming.
What's the system that's in place?
Right now it's really based on the information that comes from the developer.
How do you engage the residents to get that information?
Well, we often
Simple question.
hear from them if they feel like it hasn't been resolved in time.
So there's no outreach.
And Brad.
So just 1 second. Yeah. Could you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
And if you could just identify yourself and your title for the record.
I'm Brad Greenberg, the Chief Compliance Officer at NYCHA. There are systems that we have in place in really key areas to confirm that the work is being done, including with field inspections and talking to residents. So I want to talk about a couple of them for you, Chair. One is the reports that come in from the PACT developer on mold and leaks. If the work order exceeds a 30-day period, it comes directly to my department, to the compliance department from the real estate department. And then we have a process in place where we take each work order and we chase down information about it. We both call the resident themselves and ask them about the status of the work in their apartment. And we also ask for an update from the developer. If we're not satisfied either with generally how the developer is responding or the residents' detailed reporting to us about the work order in their unit that's exceeded 30 days, we go and do a visit ourselves. So we've gone to a lot of properties throughout the portfolio just to see the quality of the work, see whether or not the work should be getting done. If we find that it's not getting done, we have a protocol in place to issue a notice of noncompliance, which would trigger a housing quality standards inspection by the leased housing department to suspend subsidy. So that's what we do on the mold and leak front. We also have a third-party environmental firm that goes out related to lead-based paint. And if we are told that there's an issue responding to a complaint around that, we send that inspector out, to go do a full evaluation. We also might ask for clearance reports or other things that we need from the developer. So there are systems that we've put in place in the last few years to try to understand whether or not the work's being done properly.
How many times has NYCHA identified issues with a PACT partner for being non-compliant?
So we are working with them every day. Like before this committee hearing, I was on the phone.
Can you give me a number?
It's hard to say exactly because
Well, can you get that? Can you get that to us?
the number is how many times we found them.
You
to be-
found a PACT partner in non-compliant.
Yeah, we've done multiple instances of that. It's really not so simple of like whether you're non-compliant or not. Our goal is to get the residents satisfied with the work in their apartment, so we get to that point, and that's what we're trying to chase with.
Well, I mean, the reason why I ask that is because if there's a multitude of situations where the PACT partner is found non-compliant, then we know, they're obligated to provide these services to the tenants.
We just
so
make
we
them
need
come
to
in
track to
different
see,
clients,
if this is really working, and that's the reason why we need to know exactly how many have been found or have not been found non-compliant.
Absolutely.
NYCHA has now put out some information on the NYCHA website about PACT partner performance. Is there any data or information being collected that is not on the dashboard?
I mean, I think that's what's on the website is obviously aggregated, as was mentioned before, but it
Right.
basically encapsulates the bulk of what we collect from our PAC partners.
So what steps does NYCHA take when data shows poor performance of the PAC partner?
Well, Brad just explained part of it as it relates to his work, and we follow a similar procedure. If it's a set of issues that are within the real estate's realm, what we want to do is get to resident satisfaction. So we will be working with the PAC partner and the residents to make sure that whatever the issue is being resolved.
On the PAC dashboard, NYCHA describes tenancy proceeding status with pre-eviction outreach, cases initiated, and evictions. Do PAC partners provide any other data about outcomes of outreach or initiations, such as the number of households entering payment plans, or the number of households who self-evict or leave prior to pre-eviction or to a pre-eviction?
Yes, we require our PAC partners to share with us, the names and numbers of all of the households that are in pre-eviction outreach, and as well on, the nature of the issue, to connect residents with the relevant resources to
Services. Okay. Okay. So what are the services that are being provided?
Well, something that comes up a lot is if a resident is having trouble paying rent and it's due to a change, and it's perhaps sure that the issue is, and then figuring out what is the best strategy for help.
Who provides the oversight over the non?
It is and we have some oversight over them as well.
The particularly the work scope. Are providing services, or say they're providing services. For some reason, they have, like I know one particular not-for-profit or CBO that Linden houses, they basically, their work scope is dedicated to benefit, assisting folks with rent arrears, part of their scope. So, and I think that goes back to the oversight in making sure that these developers or management companies, management also also
those plans to be developed and tailored to the needs of each community. So that is what there is a need that's not being met at any particular site. We can certainly discuss revisiting what social services are being provided.
do you have a list of all of the CBO and actually when it comes to their contracts, is the tenant association or a situation that's going on like in Linden houses doesn't take place? Well, basically they're providing services to tenants that, not say they're not needed, but where they should be providing other services.
Yes, we do rely on the insight and the expertise of the tenant association president and leadership. Tell us what they think the needs are. So again, if there are, as the projects evolve and as things change on the campuses over time, if there are new needs that come up, we can certainly talk about what the social service program would look like.
So resident engagement is key and important. One of the things that we constantly see is that what you said is not what's actually being done. So if we can get clarity or just get a straight answer more as to why we have developments or CBOs coming into NYCHA developments under RAD PACT that have not been any engagement, there's been no engagement with the tenant association in the beginning stages to make sure that the CBO that is coming in is meeting the needs and desires of the development.
Yes.
I was hogging the mic for a little. We're gonna hogging questions by our committee members, and we're gonna begin. We're gonna go to Councilmember Sanchez.
Thank you so much, Chair. That is the chair's privilege. So that is the. My first question is a local one, and I'm looking at you, Leroy, because just in case this is happening in other conversions. So I have the Northwest Bronx bundle. It's not 100% sites. We have a tenant association that we were told by the tenants was dissolved. To make that choice, you can confirm that for me. Appears between my office where tenant and NYCHA and just blanketing the whole building and inviting everyone to the whole building, or where they have a dysfunctional TA, or where for whatever reason the average at NYCHA and the development. Sure.
So our approach, we'll be meeting with the resident at that particular, and we want possible.
Okay, all tenants receive the same information, but there is a steering committee that is.
It's a development where there's no resident associations. We select the residents that seem like they want to be a part of the process. So it will never be a point where we don't have residents as part of the committee to select a developer.
And what are to inform the rest of the NYCHA residents within that building?
We'll do one.
The proposals that we get from PACT partners, they also interview PACT partners. We take residents on tour partners.
But do they have any to keep their neighbors informed about what's going on in the process?
No, we don't expect. We know that that is our responsibility.
So the responsibility of NYCHA
Yes.
Yes.
and the PACT partner. I'm sorry, Chair, if I may.
No, you may.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so thank you for those responses, and I'll continue to follow up with my tenants in particular, because it is concerning, representing hundreds of apartments that are, don't have a TA leadership. So regarding transfers, legal services of New York City lose their ability to transfer unless their desired building is a part of the same bundle owned and managed by the same private landlord, and owned and to transfer outside of, say, Northwest Bronx bundle to transfer outside that bundle, and is limiting their privileges, if you will, as compared to NYCHA residents. So that is one way that the privileges of a NYCHA resident who were on the wait list for a very long time, possible have been on wait list before the transfer, allowing them to stay on the wait list, or is there any policy that is being considered to accommodate such families?
As it relates to their Section 8 tenancy, after a year, all residents in place can request a housing choice voucher to relocate anywhere in the United States where there's another public housing agency. So there is a broader accessibility to affordable housing plan to